Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Spencer was just telling us about a game, a Japanese game that he was playing, and it sounds like until the wee hours of the morning. What's the story with this one?
Yeah, it was an arcade game, and you got 4 buttons, and you hit them in different games. It's a 3-player game, so really, kind of a complex multiplayer. There was no crypto involved. It was one of those old school kind of arcade games. We're pounding the buttons, getting them in combinations, all left and right, kind of crazy shit you wouldn't even believe, Pio, if I told you.
How'd you find out about it? Like, what prompted you to go out of your way to play this game?
Well, so as you know, I've recently gotten a car, which in New York is like a big thing.
Congratulations, yes.
Thank you. And so we've been looking for excuses of like driving around, whipping it, especially leaving Manhattan. And so we found last night a barcade that was open in New Jersey, and went and played this Japanese game there and sort of whipped it to New Jersey. So that was my yesterday. And you know what? I realized, one of the things about living in Manhattan is your sense of the price of things gets really warped. And so like we were there, we got the tokens were like 25 cents. It was 3 of us for like 2 hours there. We spent like $20, and I was like, whoa. Because if you know anything, entertaining yourself in Manhattan does not cost like $7 an hour or $3.50 an hour per person. Well, you just can't do it.
Not at all. And Clemente's ass is about to learn that when he moves here. He's not a lifelong Manhattaner like you are. Yeah, when you get the car, dude, it really opens up. There's a lot of stuff you can do outside of town. Nick, what's going on?
Well, I'm just wondering, so you said you got the new whip. Did you ghost ride it right after you got it? Like you got to initialize, like you got to initiate it into your life via ghost ride.
What's ghost ride?
Well, we can
you don't know about ghost riding the whip?
Well, Spencer was a wee lad when E40 was, telling people when to go. And that was happening on the West Coast. Spencer is a New Yorker, and he was a young lad with a very bright future in fencing. I don't know if he really knows about the extent of E40 getting hyphy over in Oakland, Nick.
Okay, well, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, because there was a viral meme where you would actually ghost ride your car.
Yeah, that was because... So you see the different things, right? You see the guy that was a tech guy saying it was a viral meme versus the guy that's a hip hop guy that is pointing out the origination of it. It was E40 and the hyphy movement in Oakland. Ghost riding the whip was a big thing.
Hyphy is not, when you say hyphy, that's something that I'm not familiar with and is not described in the Wikipedia page on ghost riding. I'm going to be honest.
Got it. Thanks for letting me know. I thought you're like, it was a viral meme. Yeah, it was a viral meme. It got pretty big. But Spencer, we expect you to ghost ride the whip as demonstrated on the screen here.
When you put it in neutral and you hop out and you jump on the hood?
Sure. I mean, yeah.
No. So you get the car going, and then you hop out of the driver's seat and you sit on top of it while it's not being controlled.
Yeah, I don't know. My car's got all sorts of fancy beeping stuff. I think if you open the door while it's driving, it stops driving.
Dude, yeah, the early 2000s cars had different technical specifications.
We've lost the technology to do this. It's truly, at one point,
we've lost the technology.
We no longer have the technology to do this. This is really wild.
Pio, did you know in the car that we use that you can use hand gestures to control everything inside of the car?
I didn't know that. I absolutely despise the new cars. My mom's got a car from like 2014. I like it, even though it's like a Honda. I like it more than the new cars, even if you had like an Audi or a luxury new car, because you get in my mom's car, you stick the key in, you turn the key, and then you start driving. It's amazing. It's incredible. With the new cars, you have to like wait. You have to like download an app to get the thing to turn on. You have to there's so many buttons. Good God, are there a lot of buttons? I heard a guy complaining on Pomp's podcast about the amount of buttons in a new car. I literally almost spit my coffee out. I was like, I love this guy. This guy's onto something.
Well, when we got the car, I literally couldn't leave the lot from where I was for half an hour. Like it,
Yeah.
it took half an hour for me to figure out how to get the car in motion because I was like, well, I want to play my music on here and it's Apple Play. So theoretically, you would expect, oh, I like plugged in a USB cable into it. It has nothing to do with USB. You're using like Bluetooth or something like that in order to get it working, or like a local Wi-Fi network. But it tries to convince you. So you don't need the app, by the way, in order to use.
I know I'm exaggerating. Yeah,
but it still does suck. And for some reason, it started working now. Like I've finally have figured out how to use it. But the thing that was crazy was, so every time I adjusted the dial, there would be like a hand signal that would like pop up, and it would be like go like this. And I'm like, what the hell is this thing talking about? So then I'm like, is that a hand? So I went like this, and I'm like, oh shit, you can control the volume. You can do next track with hand gestures in front of the thing, which is the dumbest thing ever.
Can you turn the wheel with hand gestures?
Yeah, well, what you do is you put your hand on the wheel and then you turn it. So that's
I
the
like
hand
that.
gesture.
So
I like that hand gesture functionality. Go ahead, Spencer.
This is a new thing that I've learned on my new car. Is I was bugging out about it. I was driving. I was like, I feel like the steering wheel is turning itself. Like I don't know what's happening. I can't explain this to you. Like when you
Power
go on an
steering.
off ramp
Oh,
and you like hit the thing. Turns out I was like, but you know what? I must just be like
lane
feeling
guidance.
right? Yeah. Turns out it's some shit called lane assist. And
Dude,
so
that
for
thing is
reference too-
crap.
So for
I hate
reference
that.
to, like, my last car was a 2003 Toyota Camry with like 170,000 miles on it. So like, you know, I don't know. This is a real shift for me.
Yeah,
Dude.
that car, a 2003 Toyota Camry is a better car than a 2023 Audi because the
Ooh, and
the
not
2003 Camry drives. It just drives.
Not only was it 2003 Toyota Camry, it was a 2003 Toyota Camry with a V6 engine. Because
That thing's
Toyota
badass.
Camrys have V6 engines in the top trim, and so like truly, I learned this because I had this issue, which is like most of the modern cars that I got in and I'd drive, and I'd be like, this feels like a toy. Like this doesn't feel like a real car. And because it turns out that growing up, I've just been driving a car with a serious engine. Whereas the base model of most like luxury cars or whatever is like a 2-liter fucking engine. And so, you know, there you
It
go.
flies when you put
flies.
that's the best part of the experience of the nice car, except lane assist you have to turn off. That thing is just complete garbage. Like it like beeps at you. You're getting like random things going on, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on in my car, but I keep seeing flashing. Also, it like flashes an indicator which shows the whatever their lane assist icon, and I'm just like, what is going on? Is the car broken right now?
The crazy thing on mine, this is the one I really got to turn off, is that the steering wheel rumbles if you're drifting out of a lane.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a really freaky experience to have like haptics in the steering wheel. I don't know who designed that, but they need to be fired.
I can't do it. I think I'm just not a car person in general. Cause like, you know, a lot of guys are like, oh dude, I love cars. It's like, that's not me. I know a guy that has a vintage car showroom in the Hamptons. And when I went to the Hamptons like a month and a half ago, we stopped in there. And he asked me how I like the car. And I was like, it's got way too many buttons. It's out of control with the buttons. And it's so confusing to drive. I want to just drive the car. And he was like, dude, same thing. He said his parents had to like pull over. They had a problem with the car. You know, these are some like Greek immigrants that are, you know, who knows how old. He's like, dude, they were stuck for hours. They had to download an app. I was like, what are we doing here with the cars and the apps? But anyway, he's got the old school cars, right? So he has like a Ferrari over in that showroom from I don't even know what year. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful car, but he starts it up and I'm like, dude, can I be close to this thing? It feels like it's about to explode with the sound of the engine. And then he's like, you want to look under the hood? I'm like, yeah. He's like, but I gotta raise the hood from the middle because it's carbon, whatever, aluminum or something, and it's gonna fold if I do it. I'm like,
aluminum.
I don't, yeah, exactly. I don't know anything about cars, dude. I don't know. The Hampton mentioned, I don't mention the Hamptons that often, dude. We got a commenter here saying I'm keeping the Hamptons mention streak going. We're up to 154 consecutive episodes. I don't talk about the Hamptons, dude. The Hamptons is too expensive. Nick just went there.
I don't talk about the Hamptons. The Hamptons are too expensive. The Hamptons, you know, I don't talk about the Hamptons where I went on vacation that much. In the Hamptons where I saw, you know, my vintage car collection. But no, I don't talk about the Hamptons.
So I just wanted to say real quick, there was not a proper analysis here of the Ghost Ride, because I feel like it was underplayed there. And real quick, I just want to show a couple references. This is a gentleman putting. So I pulled up a video. There's a guy that puts a little kid slide from a playground in the back of the truck. And the guy gets out of the car.
Well, he gets out of the car. He climbs out of the window while the car's moving onto the roof of the car and goes down the slide.
Goes down the slide. So that's like that. Like the degree to which this like existed. This is a guy skateboarding on top of his roof. What like?
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like planking. This has similar vibes to that.
Yeah, this is cooler than planking though, because planking
that
was
was cooler than planking, but also way more dangerous. Orders of magnitude. This was that era before like safety.
Yeah, I mean, like basically.
That was slick. That was slick. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a guy. He's climbing out of an old Chrysler minivan. He brings a skateboard with him onto the roof. He rides the skateboard, kick flips off of the vehicle. I thought the
kick flip or what is that move
360 flip maybe. I thought it was done. He then gets back on the skateboard and casually just runs back in. I mean, just the confidence. He's done this a lot of times. Just jumping into the window.
Butt first back into the video. So pardon me, Pio, if I don't understand the music side of it. I think I was seeing it on Vine, and there were like all these ridiculous clips of people just being complete idiots on top of their car. And that was like the whole point of the entire, and it was just absurdity as it applied to these various memes. I think this is probably the best one, is putting a playground in the back of the guy's truck. It looks like he's in like New Orleans or like Alabama or something like that.
Well, Noah B said TikTok doesn't risk their lives now the way people did in the 90s. First of all, this is the 2000s. Second of all, I would argue that TikTokers do, because they eat bleach pods or whatever. They eat Tide pods and do strange stuff like that. That feels risky to me.
Teen seriously hurt in the Ghost Ride the Whip stunt when truck runs him over. That's ridiculous.
Signal in Europe where people ghost riding whips. You guys got manual transmissions over there.
Yeah, like I do not remember this trend when like seeing this back in the early 2000s. I don't think anyone was ghost whipping. This is actually the first time I've seen this like on YouTube, but I totally agree with Spencer. You could never do this with a modern car, because as soon as like, first of all, there's child lock on like every single door in modern cars. Like you get into your friend's car and you just can't get out, and you're like, can you let me out? So first of all, you can't even jump out. Then you're absolutely right. The car will stop if the driver comes out. And then if any kind of weight was to go on top of the car, like standing on it, jumping on it, it would stop, or it would like change mode. You know, like how you can change mode for like icy pavement, hills, whatever. It would change mode and just be like, does not recognize terrain, stop. So like, never seen this happen like in London. I don't know. Someone correct me in the comments if you have, but I never saw this in the 2000s.
It does check whether or not you're seated in your car now.
Oh, and the seatbelt and the seatbelt noise. The seatbelt noise when you take off your seatbelt in the car.
So yeah, that's annoying. So this kid got a collapsed lung, busted shoulder, bleeding out of his head.
Some casual injuries for making a little internet video.
Try this at home, kids. You know?
From the Ghost Ride the Whip sort of approach. So I just feel like that was that's like the content that I came for on the internet, was that sort of stuff. Now we just have like drama ensuing. It's like I saw Andrew Shultz drama with one of the Nelk Boys, basically, because So I'm blank. It's called like Stewie or Stu. I don't know the names of the Nelk Boys. Steiny. There you go. So Steiny. I understand, dude. You watch them while you're drinking your
Prime Energy Buddy's
your
like
Prime
a
Energy.
35-year-old man that's obsessed
Dude,
with.
Happy Dads are good.
So, oh my god. So basically, he's Andrew Shultz is being interviewed by him, and Steiny asks him a question. He's like, "Yo, man, like, has anybody in the audience ever said something offensive to you?" And he's like, have they heckled you? And basically, it's like, yeah, I'm a professional comic. Like, that's just like part of the thing. And he's like, yo, you ever tell a joke that didn't go well? and
he's like, yeah.
And so he doesn't even respond because he's like, I can't tell if I'm being trolled. And like in the middle of the podcast, he's just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I don't understand. Like, are you guys like, I feel like you guys aren't even taking this seriously. At the end of it, basically, like afterwards, it's like, we shouldn't publish that podcast. And
Wow.
so like it comes out later that like he had said this, and they just didn't publish the podcast. But there was an interview that one of the Nelk Boys that they were involved with, where basically someone asks them, hey, have you ever like had a podcast that you didn't publish? And they're like, yeah, one of them. And they're like, well, what happened? And one of them tells the story of what went down. And so now this story gets out and everyone's saying like, why don't you publish the podcast? And so he has this episode, Andrew Shultz, where he just literally is like, release the video. He tells the story of it, but basically I'm seeing all these like short clips where it actually goes down, and he's basically telling Steiny that he sucks. And just like, I guess counter trolling him because he felt like he was being trolled. But yeah, the whole situation was like totally ridiculous. I don't even know how I got on that.
You're talking about beef. I mean, that is actually interesting, though.
That's like the content that we're watching now versus like Ghost Ride the Whip, where a guy's like actually doing some funny shit.
you know what this sounds like to me is this is like you guys' equivalent of like, like men used to go to war and now we like XYZ, trade pictures of monkeys on the internet. Like now it's like, like real men used to ghost ride the whip. And now we just eat Tide Pods and argue about each other's feelings on the pod. Like that's okay, boomers.
I mean, I think it's more so there used to be good content, and now like somehow we're like manufacturing this scenario where someone's being insulted, and that's like the entertain. It's just like worse content as a result of it. And even back when like Logan Paul, for example, used to do Vine. So like that was like him trying to do like comedic content. I didn't enjoy a lot of the people that were there, but that was like the format. Now it's like, well, it all worked out till he did that whole suicide thing. But the quality has just gone downhill, Spencer. So it's not a boomer thing. It's more of like you got to respect the quality at that point in time. Last comment on this, I was having breakfast with a group of people this weekend, and someone brought up, they were like, man, what was the best decade of music? And like basically the musicians present unanimously agreed that it was the 70s. And I was like, really? Okay. And they were like, yeah, there was like innovation in music then. There was innovation with jazz, like with early jazz. And then you had rock, and then you had
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I just Googled it, 1973.
Yeah, so they were referring to like the best Pink Floyd and some of this other stuff that existed there. And then basically you had hip hop, which came later if you want to.
1978.
But that's a less pure music. That's a remix. That's like remix culture versus like what it's being remixed from is the stuff that's coming from the 70s. Is the source
70s soul music.
It ends up being used in hip hop. So that's where I think they were essentially applying. But anyways, I just was like, I could provide no commentary on it because like these guys are like,
yeah, you don't know anything about music.
Okay. They're professional musicians though. And I'm just like, I'm not going to provide any. Like the guy next to me was like, like the 90s, and they were like, excuse me, like they were like offended when he was like, did you like the 90s? And they were just like, oh my god, this is awful. And I'm like, I like the 90s.
Well, those are also music industry snobs, it sounds like, which that is kind of what you get when you deal with people that work in the music industry. It's never as good as it used to be. Records sound better than digital, this, that, and the other thing.
Oh yeah, that's some bullshit. But yeah.
Yeah, the best is when you talk to someone that's been in the music industry for decades and they talk about like what happened in 2002, or there's one year where the sales dropped off a cliff, similar to NFT sales completely dropping off a cliff in May 2022. Basically, everybody in the industry was completely rich, and then they just weren't anymore once like digital, basically LimeWire and Napster and all that disrupted it. I know Napster came way earlier.
2002?
Something like that. Yeah, it's one of those years.
Napster definitely wasn't 2022.
No, it was way earlier, but
not
it took
that
a while.
much earlier. Like 1999, maybe 2000. I don't think
it took a few years for everybody to catch on and be like, wait, we don't have to buy the things anymore. So okay, so 99.
What did I say? What you're talking to my era.
Yeah,
this point, okay.
You're talking about Nick's era. Plus, the kid that did Napster went to Northeastern. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to discuss the bald token rug pull and the possible connections that people are speculating about on Twitter. We're going to talk about the SEC's latest charge against a crypto founder, and we're going to talk about the DGOD Season 3 final date announcement. Signal, can we run with the weather report, and then we will get into the discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 1st of August. You've got total market volume pretty steady, 13 million. Blur at 9.2, while OpenSea at 2.7. On to leaders, not much change. Apes are still hanging out at 29. Mutants at 5.6. Punk steady at 48. DGOD's hanging in at 8.6, while Azuki sub 5 again at 4.9. Captain, same place as Azuki, 4.9, while Pudgy's holding nicely at 4.3. Over the past 24 hours, well, Bold, the token Bold, which reached 100 million valuation on Coinbase's new chain base, ended up rugging, netting the creator $5.2 million. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, said as a result of this rug pull, they're going to roll back to the Genesis block. On to PFPs, and Frank DGOD announced DGOD Season 3. This is going to come out on August 9th. There was some teasing of former announcements, which was expect new artwork, beautiful content, big surprises, and a new vision for what the NFT community will be. You got DGOD steady at 8.6, and Utes were up 15% and holding 1.7. On to Ether, after eventually selling out after they had a bit of a volatile period, the team announced that the co-founder has been let go. They haven't given a specific reason. We expect this to come out later. We don't know why this is, but after all the troubles of the mint, it's obviously news that the co-founder has gone. And then lastly, the Animoca back project Grapes, which minted out for, it was 0.03 back in early June, is up 104% on the 7-day. The team obviously has that collab with Fortnite. They got the token dropping in Q4. They got 8 more games planned to drop in the next 12 months. So that floor price just a week ago was 0.48, and yesterday it broke 0.6, went up to 0.63. So that was been one of the biggest winners of the past week. On to crypto, BTC at 28.8, ETH at 1,833, Sol hanging out at 23.4, Ape 1.8. Bit of a pullback here, but still looking okay for this week. Back to you, folks.
Fantastic. Fantastic weather report as usual, Signal. One thing to mention, and I think Nick was trying to point that out, is that tweet actually was not from actually Brian Armstrong's account. It was from a fake account. So you got to love the current joke landscape of Twitter, where it's hard to tell whether somebody's real or fake. Anyway, some updates from the Nifty Daily Digest, which is the daily newsletter published from the nifty.com. You can subscribe at the nifty.com. You need to have an account there to claim the free NFTs that we drop almost daily, including today. So go to the nifty.com and make an account. The SEC has charged Richard Hart and his entities Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X for unregistered crypto offerings that raised over $1 billion. Hart is also facing fraud charges for misusing funds on luxury purchases. Seems like this guy was really living the life when you look at the videos and pictures of him. Nick?
He's one of the most insane YouTubers. I had a buddy who was telling me about who used to talk about Hex. He's like, oh, you got to check out Hex. and I end up looking at Richard Hart's YouTube. It's basically him sitting on a throne and covered in Louis Vuitton apparel. This is not the setup. If you go to his account, you should go to his channel, because that's not the majority of his videos used to be him just sitting there, just adorned in excessive like items, and it was to a degree that you're just like, dude, this guy is tacky as hell. Like it was so whack. But regardless, I mean, I don't think it's surprising to see that this happened to him. There were a lot of people who were like huge hex bulls back during that bull run that were just like, yo, this is the future. But that is actually the story of the crypto space, is that like 99% of people you should just not listen to. Pretty much you shouldn't listen to anybody, frankly. But the majority of people just create a narrative around pretty much anything that exists in the space, and they're just like, this person is a genius. You know, they're great in the future.
I think what you're really trying to say is Richard Hart became the main character, and that's the problem, right? Easy. He became the main character, and that's the issue here. It's not that he took the money that investors gave him and bought a bunch of luxury cars, Louis Vuitton bags, and everything. The problem was that he became the main character.
You can never become the main character. That's the issue at hand. He became the main character, and it all went south. You got to be careful. I do love the Hex maxis, though. Like, to this day, despite the SEC claims, they're like, Hex is the future. This is where everything will take place. Pulse chain's only down 99%. There's nothing that could go worse here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty silly stuff. Look, next story, Yuga Labs is set to acquire Roar Studios, a company specializing in emerging gaming, social media, and the metaverse through advanced AI. And as part of the acquisition, the CEO of Roar, Eric Reed, will join Yuga Labs to spearhead the development and the expansion of the Other Side platform. To me, very cool acquisition. Sounds good. If I'm going to quote NFT traders, what does it do for the NFTs? So thank you, NFT traders. I appreciate it. Moving on, we got NFT trading platform NFT Perp shutting down their V1 version due to challenges in handling profits resulting from traders heavily betting against NFT prices in July. Wait a minute. So wait, are you telling me an NFT perp platform is shutting down because everybody just shorted NFTs for the whole month of July?
The problem was it was basically the only platform you could short NFTs on. So you can see, look how many people shorted Azuki in July versus they were long. So they just were racking up all these profits, and NFT perp couldn't pay it off.
Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to start a platform that allows people to short or long NFTs, they're always going to short them. So you're going to want to factor that in, that everyone's just going to excessively short every NFT, and they're probably going to be right. So not bad. Last but not least, Doodles has announced the hiring of an artist in residence, which marks the first successful hiring through the Incubator Proposal, a launch pad that was created for Doodles holders to submit proposals and positions aimed at expanding the Doodles brand. So those are your stories from the Nifty Daily Digest. We have to talk about the bald rug pull. Oh, Nick, go ahead.
Real quick, before we discuss bald, which we're still discussing this. It's basically like we knew it was shit. It's still shit, and we got verification of it.
You're missing all the backstory of it, which is so much more enjoyable.
So we'll get there in one sec. Real quick though, we don't have on the show notes anything about this Yuga thing. I think it's actually a pretty important acquisition. And the biggest thing associated with this is we saw teasers of this before, and it's very interesting to observe. Here's the bottom line. They were focusing on the music metaverse side of things. And I just think like Yuga's been focusing on events within this metaverse, which I think is a genius approach to create sustainability for the platform for a period of time, which already enables them to usurp like a Decentraland or something like that, which wasn't able to attract the same level of talent into the ecosystem. They have deep relationships in the entertainment industry. They acquire a music metaverse company, basically. And so I think there's going to be a lot of like shows that occur in other side land where for the time being, where you don't need a ton of game dynamics associated with that for the beginning. And instead you can get people engaging on the platform in the short term while you end up with these high sort of like, with like the mall, the anchor tenants essentially is the way.
This
like
is what they did with Fortnite though. Like they did concerts in Fortnite where like they did a Travis Scott experience that was like his full, I want to say it was his last album, where they did like a full experience for it. They did it with the Kid Leroy. They've done it with a few others as well, where you go in, they have this map and this like short experience that they play live over like 4 different time periods that last about an hour. Marshmello did one, and it's like an event. And I think that that's where you can actually get people to be like, oh, this is sick. It's an experience. And now you take that real world aspect, but give them a digital experience, and it's a one-time iteration. You don't need to do like a full game mode to have people be like, this is awesome.
Well, and now you can get stoned in front of your computer instead of having to like walk over
You don't have to talk
a concert.
to people in person. You don't have to smell the guy next to you. Now you can just sit there at your desk where you were anyway and just virtually enjoy it. It sounds like a win-win for everyone involved.
I love it. Nick?
No, I think that this is a big move, and it actually gives them milestones and events to keep people excited in the interim. What I don't know about is like how this applies to like the value of the NFTs themselves. But we'll find out. The bottom line is, I think they're building something that's interesting, and all the other side is redundant there. The other side events really, I think, kind of like embrace this sort of like event-based approach to things. And it's fascinating to observe. And maybe there's a way to generate excitement where there's no interactions in between those different events, but they're really building those experiences. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. So look, well, let's touch on the bald rug pull.
Very important.
Yeah. I mean, look, before I throw to Easy on this, is this something you participated in, Spencer?
It's not. I am bald, but I do not participate in $ bald. And you know what? Quite frankly, it's really sad to see my community rugged in this way. Solidarity
the bald community
with all the other bald community members who were affected here. If you had hair and you got caught in this rug, that one's on you. That one's on you for sure. But if you were bald and you got rugged, I want to get to the bottom of this. Was the person who issued this bald? There's so many questions here, right?
If he wasn't, then that's absolute BS. And that guy, quite frankly, those are the charges that they should bring upon him, is impersonating a bald developer. I mean, the bald community is definitely outraged at this one. Easy, can you give us the backstory? And then after this, we'll talk a little bit about Richard Hart. We're going to talk about Yuga's lawsuit, and then we're going to talk about D-God Season 3. So we actually have a lot of meat on the bone today. Easy, what do you make of what's going on with BALD, bald?
Yeah, so there's a lot of speculation on if SBF is behind the bald token.
Is that just bullshit, though?
Dude, so I will say I don't think it was SBF, but I will say it looks like somebody from FTX. There's a chance that they were somehow in ties to this. They were the #1 DYDX farmer a couple years back. They interacted with the Alameda controller wallets at the time. They interacted with CB.ETH, which is the Coinbase staking ETH, and we're one of the largest holders of it. And then, like, what's even weirder is the Serum Twitter account, which was the popular DEX on Solana, was repurposed to a milady and was publicly tweeting about this. There's a lot of connotation and tonality that matches like verbiage. Like the use of the word nor was like one thing that someone harped on, and how SBF continually used that. A lot of people think it's Alex Trebeko, I think is the guy's name.
Oh, yeah, the guy that left early?
Yes. So a lot of people speculated it was actually him, because he was the one that was behind the scenes controlling a lot of like the low float pumponomics that happened with a lot of the tokens, and in a very similar manner in which the LP for Bald was deployed. So like there's just a lot of speculation right now on what this is, but there's a lot of things that are like kind of lining up with like the social media applications that were used, where these pages came from, who the people are that are affiliated, in the wallet history. Like, because the blockchain's public, the wallet has like some scary ties to Alameda, FTX, and some really early DeFi stuff that has a lot of people sitting there like, this feels like it's somebody at FTX. It's not SBF, because currently I guess SBF doesn't have access to a laptop without supervision from his lawyers and can only use a flip phone. So you can't really deploy a shitcoin from a flip phone. There's a lot of people that are saying that at the case, but it does, like, my bet is that it's probably somebody from Alameda. Like, it's not SBF. But the big thing was the Serum Twitter and then the wallet history, which was like really interesting. And just for context, like what happened with the token, it had, I want to say 35 million in liquidity put into the token, which sent the token price up to 100 million market cap. And then the person basically pulled almost all the liquidity, which dropped it, and then injected another 10 million to catch like a secondary pump. So there was 4 wallets that bought 50% of the token supply early on. They created the liquidity pools. And what happens when you create a liquidity pool is you basically DCA out, which led to them getting a ton of ETH. And they just use that ETH to continue to buy back the token or buy the LP. So it was just like yesterday was crazy on the timeline, because you had that. You had the Hex situation. You had Curve potentially going insolvent. It was just like everything DeFi and token related was crazy.
So what is the deal with the Curve side of things? I'm more interested in, dude, Bald is just like, yeah, I understand the story is crazy that criminals are doing criminal behavior, and that's what's going on. And there's a bunch of criminals inside in the crypto space. So like, that's nothing new. The Curve finance side of things, though, what exactly happened? Was it a depegging situation, or
it was an exploit?
Was it a pegging situation?
Yeah. So your personal preference was involved, but it was an exploit on the Curve liquidity pool that led to the behind the scenes having some issues. So Curve's pools got exploited. They lost a ton of funds, which caused the depeg in the Curve price. If Curve trades under 35 cents, then it gets liquidated. And right now there's a ton, because there's actually like the way people with a ton of tokens get most of their money is they loan it out. So there's a ton of Curve loaned on like Aave and a bunch of other platforms that's not actually backed properly, because people just like had a belief that Curve would never depeg and that like the liquidity would be fine through the smart contracts. And sure enough, there's issues with it. And now if Curve goes under 35 cents, there's a cascading liquidation that'll potentially hit Aave and some others. And late last night, the founder of Curve was OTC selling 6-month locked up Curve at 40 cents per. So basically like getting a bunch of the funds to buy back the Curve to prevent the liquidation at a better value to the dollar. So that's the thing here, where it's like there's a ton of like black swan events for DeFi that were potentially avoided last night, which was good. But yeah, it was pretty wild to watch unfold in real time. You saw a ton of like other tokens getting sold off. You saw a ton of like Curve getting sold into different pools, trying to like basically just get capital. A bunch of other assets that the Curve founder owned was selling just to try to recoup this to prevent the liquidation.
Dude,
Nick's shaking his head.
I mean, DeFi is basically like, first we had DeFi summer, then we had DeFi's dead. So like, it goes in. I guess we have was DeFi summer the year before? 2020.
Yeah,
so you had 2020, and then we have DeFi dying. Then you got NFT summer, and now you got NFTs dying. Is the next one NFT summer V2?
Oh yeah, baby. Wait till that one. No, you definitely have a lot of dinguses operating in DeFi still. Well, it seems like a crisis was quasi avoided. Go ahead.
Well, I thought that like earning 15% yield from each other was like pretty like
realistic,
like sustainable.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the future of DeFi is like no BS tokens. Like I don't think that the entities, like let's say you have a DeFi platform, I think the future is like that DeFi platform doesn't issue their own token. Do you know what I mean?
There was Lending Club, which was not a crypto system where you could loan money to other people, so peer-to-peer lending. And eventually, they just well, they got rid of the individual loans and instead went to a fully backed commercial-based approach where you had institutional investors funding all the loans, because it was a pain in the ass dealing with all the individual lenders. But it was also like the whole interface there was, well, I actually don't know. Do you know what went wrong with that? Easy?
You had a lot of defaults because it was a much looser approval rating, and a lot of them weren't FDIC insured because it was peer-to-peer lending. So like with Lending Club, like part of it was backed, but it wasn't the full amount. So you ended up getting a lot of situations where people would like lend out money peer to peer and not get paid back. So it just like it was the credit, like the person giving the money was the one basically getting screwed every time, because with a bank, they can take on more of that risk and be all right. Me giving you $100 when I have 1,000 is a much bigger hit than a bank giving you 1,000 when they have 10 million. Like,
so I had that happen. So I put $1,000 into an A-rated loan, lost it within a month basically, because and then I just used the automated. I was like, what's the default rate on an A-rated thing? Within 1 month, it defaulted. Like I'm just
it was insanely high. That was the wild part. Was their default rating was like 45%, even on their highest. It was stupid how often people would default because the checks and balances weren't as like stringent as like an actual bank loan.
Could you not get credit? Like, wait, so would it not impact your credit report if you went in?
It would. But the issue was they would approve people with worse credit scores than a bank would for higher amounts. So like you could walk in with like a 500 credit score and get $2,500, and like your ass doesn't give a shit at that point. You're just like, sure, I'll take a 50-point hit. I'm not getting this shit anywhere else, and I'm keeping the money.
Well, if you're making money on the transaction fees, then you're just like letting every loan through the system.
Everyone.
And the loans were ridiculous. It was like people taking $50,000 loans to make a baller pool in their backyard, and the application would be like reading. You could read the applications, and I gotta say that was the best part.
Hands down, the best part. Hands
because
down.
You could read like their description of what they were using this thing for. And like, if they were applying to a job, you would never hire any of these people, basically, because or for
spelling
a loan.
Spelling errors, terrible grammatic structure. Some people would be like, "I just need a car," and that was like the full sentence. Like that was it.
I just need a car.
It'd be like a loan for like $1,500, and it's like, what are you buying? Like a '97 Honda Civic with a check engine light?
Well,
sure.
Imagine what the DeFi instead, if you actually had to write an application and be like, I'm trying to buy some more NFTs, and I think there's a ton of upside here.
That's like the guy that just rugged that said, don't worry, guys, I'm going to get you your money back. I just got to go do a 5X shitcoin trading real quick.
One of the best things I've ever seen was that on the base chain, the guy took pre-sale funds for a token, posted a 3-paragraph essay in which he apologized, tagged everyone who bought into the pre-sale, and said, listen, I promise to get you the money back. I'm going to deactivate my account. I'll leave the channel up, but I'm taking this money to shitcoins. Give me a couple days to 5X it. I'll see you guys soon. And left the Telegram.
Crypto's different. Spencer, it looked like you wanted to get a word in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, did you see the thing that the Curve founder spent the money on, like what his loan was? So it looked like he borrowed like 100 mil to go buy a house.
Two houses. Please come correct. 2 mansions, not one. 2
mansions.
In Florida, where there's the Homestead Act, which means that basically you can't be, they can't claim your house if you go to jail. So I'm thinking in my mind, the reason he ended up, that one's in Australia. Maybe they have a similar thing there. Damn, that's a nice looking
gorgeous house.
Gorgeous. It looks like a hotel, to be completely
gorgeous
house. Honest. Like it looks like a
Curve Castle, lodge. Baby. Curve Castle.
So I think it's basically like, let's go put it in. It's the same thing where like Russian oligarchs and Chinese like business executives go buy like American property on some of these. Like that's the market for those where they say billionaires row. It's like not for the average person to go buy because the prices are so ludicrously inflated. It's really just trying to make a safe haven for those assets. And then even like if the person loses some percentage, it doesn't matter. But yeah, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, like, the interesting thing about all this, though, right? Like, we're sitting here and being like, like DeFi is not working. But like, actually, like DeFi is kind of working perfectly, right? Like this is the thing that you got to think about. Like, what are the outcomes here, right? Is Curve had issues. Owning the Curve token was a speculation on the success of Curve as a company. Obviously, when Curve had issues, the price should go down. Right? The founder of Curve was able to take a loan against his Curve because Curve had a price and people were speculating on it. It's the type, and lending against it was the type of exposure I guess somebody wanted via Aave. Right? And now in the free market, this Curve may get liquidated. He's, trying to buy it back so that it doesn't. So there's incentives there for him to try and repeg it with the wealth that he has. Like, if you see this as a failure of DeFi, like this is a failure in DeFi. But within DeFi, this is like exactly how all of this stuff is supposed to work, except for the curve pool, which had the exploit, right? And so, like, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
there's
we
that
all
one
get
thing,
fucked,
though.
basically.
But
Yeah,
no, there's the one weird thing was how much he was able to take as collateral against curve tokens. That's where this like actually was like a bad situation. Was you have like Aave and other lenders that took on a bunch of curve when there's not actually enough liquidity for it, because the creator of curve holds so many tokens that they were giving him unreasonable rates on it. So like that's the other issue, is like they gave him way higher value to the tokens just purely off like a gentleman's agreement, because they were like, you're not going to default on this, like it's your own company. And that was kind of like the issue here, is what led to this potential cascade, was they gave him way too high a value on these curve tokens when there's not enough liquidity across curve in general to support it.
well, it was definitely a gentleman's agreement, because if women were involved,
Got
this
him.
wouldn't have happened, right? Signal, am I right?
Yeah, of course it wouldn't have happened because we all take less risk. Yeah, of course. No, yeah, I don't know. There's something about this period right now where it just seems like so much just shit is in the system, and it just needs to be flushed out, including like platforms which obviously their collateral and risk management isn't up to par. You got meme coins just rugging over and over again, and it just feels like we'll get past this eggplant period of summer, and then finally we'll have some tangibility and like seriousness come back. The meme coin thing, like it just seems like it's kind of like sprinting into a burning building. The building's not on fire, but if you get out first, you got out with profit. It's okay. You got out with your life. But your friend that heard about it 3 days later gets into the building, and then it just collapses on him or her. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's just like you have to be the fastest swimmer in the meme coin race. And the people I know who do it and are good at, and who are good at it as well, even they find it fatiguing after a while, like on their mental health as to like how taxing it is, even though they're making profits on it. Because right now the profits are in coins, it's not in NFTs. I'm hoping that flips back after like this lull period.
Yeah, I mean, there's insane profits in coins if you happen to gamble on the right BS little coin. We can move on from this at this point. If we want to cover Richard Hart anymore, I mean, I didn't know that Clemente saying no. Clemente, what are you thinking?
I mean, the only funny part about Richard Hart is the fact that this guy bought the dark in the SEC filing chart. It said he bought the darkest diamond in the world, or the most black diamond in the world, using the funds from the project. But
you got to see the video I just shared, by the way. He used $12 million of investor funds to buy luxury goods, specifically Louis Vuitton. And if you see this video, he's walking out of a Louis Vuitton store with 6 bags, including one in his mouth. The one in his mouth is the best part, as he's like meandering through the doorway, and he goes down the street with a bag in his mouth. Like yesterday, we saw the guy for a $20,000 dog costume. This guy's walking as a human with a bag in his mouth as if he were a dog. So
to be fair, Spencer's done this before. This is something Spencer's actually done, is like walked out of a high-end store and had so many bags he had to put one in his mouth. So this isn't that weird, right, Spencer?
I ain't done this. This is kind of crazy. Well, the crazy thing too is not only is he carrying all those bags, but every item he's wearing from head to toe is looks like Gucci.
It's like full Gucci fit in a Louis Vuitton
full
store.
Gucci fit,
Full Gucci fit, backpack to hat to socks, and he pulls out in the Louis. He's like, I have enough Gucci, so I'm going to Louis. And then after this, we're gonna hit Saks Fifth. My man said I got 12 M's and none of it's mine, but we're gonna spend it like it is.
I mean, well, it was always like, I'm like, dude, you're pumping the bags of someone who's on screen, like just drenched in like luxury clothes, and you're like, yeah, this is the guy I want to get behind. That was the thing that I never understood about the Hex Bulls. Like,
well, just, you know, to his credit, it does seem like he had a guiding hand in getting LVMH into the space, right? Without him, do you know if we would have seen the Louis Vuitton Other Side collab? Would 10KTF be giving us duffel bags? I don't know, right? Like, this inspired a whole movement, because if you're an exec at Louis and you see that video, you say, fuck, I need to get into this crypto stuff because those people like to spend, right?
I think you're right. I think you're right, Spencer. The problem is that's like getting a player on your team that doesn't really even play very many minutes. It's like, it doesn't really matter that Louis Vuitton's in the
but if
space.
his dad's the big donor of the program, you know,
Okay.
you got to get him in there.
You at least get him a jersey. But the best comment here is Richard Hart showing how crypto DeFi works. Basically, you put your money in, they go spend it, and then you're just good to go. So
What's even better is when the FBI, whichever authority comes to seize the assets, they're only seizing depreciating assets because they've spent it all. They haven't even invested it into like anything that's going to go up. So it's actually quite a good idea that he's going shopping and just buying stuff that he wants rather than stuff that would actually go up in value. It's a good move. And I love that security card doesn't even bother to open both doors. He just opens one and just be like, you can waddle out of here.
Yeah, you figure it out, you D-bag. Look, Spencer, I would love to know, we got a couple topics here, but always enjoy having Spencer on the show. I would love to know, to you, what do you think is worth discussing? What do you think is interesting in crypto and NFTs today, August 1st, in eggplant month, as Signal has coined it? What is interesting to you?
I'll be honest with you, the most interesting thing to me going on right now in NFTs is the DickButt stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure you guys have covered it.
We talked about it yesterday. I mean, I'd love to hear your take on it. My take was it's not usually great for price if the quote unquote community is going to take over it and there's a mint on the way out. But I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
So this is the question, right? So like the obvious corollary here is the Satoshi MFers thing where Satoshi left it to the community, but it's not quite the same, right? So because it's being handed off not like just back to the community, but to a specific person. And also there's interesting incentives here, right? Like on the way out, there's a big exit liquidity, of course. Like the mint right now is like, it's a lot of money getting given on the way out.
Yep.
But also like the mechanism by which it's being handed off maybe incentivizes like value to accrue to other NFTs in the collection. So it's not purely extractive in the sense of like, once it does mint out, you 30 days where there's some sort of game where people are accumulating assets, right? And so that is kind of interesting. And then you've also got to think like it really matters who ends up with it, what the view of this is. Because there are people who could end up with this that are incredibly bullish, right? There are people who could end up with this where it's like, yikes, you're the person.
Who would be an example of someone that could end up with it where, it's incredibly bullish? To me, incredibly bullish means suddenly they dedicate their life to building CryptoDickButts. I'd love to know who wants to do that.
This is the most ludicrous situation. Yeah, they built something where the game is sweep the floor. So that's the game. So pump the price, although it's gone down 50%. So far that game is a losing one. And then additionally, they're just taking all this money. Yeah, they made it more dynamic. Yeah, it's interesting. If anything, this is more innovative for those who are interested in rugging to gain inspiration from, to figure out an effective way to do it in which some portion of the community without smoking crack believes that this actually is good for all.
I mean, like, look, you got to say this too, right? Like, if you've made an IP that has the same power of DickButts, like, I don't think you can call it a rug, right? Like you can say they didn't execute on much, but the truth of the matter is that, like, there's a very limited number of NFTs that have held a 1 ETH floor through the bull market or higher. Now, sure, they've dipped below 1 ETH on this announcement, but like, this is like, I mean, I don't know, like, I think there's a fair degree of the market that views DickButts as like, sort of like a CryptoPunk-esque thing if CryptoPunks weren't acquired by Yuga, right? Like, what are the OG pixel art? It's like you have DickButts and you have Cryptodes, right? And what do you think does the best after, like, in that market? So Silent Garden and Formosa are the same person, right? So the largest holder of DickButts is Andrew Kang from Mechanism Capital.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem like, I think he personally wants to take on the collection. He may donate his votes in support of someone else. Like, there's kind of a whole game going on behind the scenes. And I'll say this without tipping too much of what's going on here. There are some really serious players looking to be the person who has DickButts, right? Because this is an interesting asset. This is an interesting project. This is an interesting thing where, like, what is, like, I don't think the person who gets DickButts at the end of the day should roll out a big roadmap, right? Like, this is maintenance and continuance of a collection that probably is benefited from doing less versus more. And it's also something that like is just meme enough, but maybe it doesn't have staying power. Like, I don't know, but it wouldn't be shocking if it does, right?
Do you own DickButts?
We do own some DickButts. I think we've bought some since this capitulation. Like, people are pretty split, right? Like, there's 50% of the OGs that I've talked to are like selling out. 50% are like, you know, trying to buy more. I don't really know what's going to happen here. It's also kind of interesting to watch the open edition not mint out, right? And so that's like still being like, not open edition, sorry, the season 4, like still in the process of minting.
Well, so look, if you talked about it, it could be bullish. And when you speak, Spencer, just please keep the mic a little bit closer to the mouth.
Sorry.
No, all good. But what I was going to say is, if someone from Sotheby's or somebody from Christie's or somebody from the traditional art world ended up taking over the project, to me, that's bullish, because I talked about this on the show yesterday. There's only a couple of different ways that these digital collectibles can go. The bet with DickButts is the bet that it'll be treated as like a high-end, you know, Fabergé egg type collectible, like CryptoPunks, which it's not impossible. We saw it with CryptoPunks, but it is a big thing to have happen for literally Sotheby's to be like, and the next collection with the bold fund manager, like we talked about before, like going once, going twice. There's a DickButt on the wall. Who wants to spend $100,000 on the DickButt? Like, that's the reality. Which, guys, I don't think is impossible, but I do think that you got to kind of go full speed towards that reality for these things to have value. Like you said, Spencer, we're not talking roadmaps. We're not talking startups. We're not talking video games. We're not talking any of that stuff. We're talking like, you know, legendary collectible, you know, like provenance on the blockchain, all this stuff, right? And so to me, you're trending towards traditional auction houses wanting to auction the thing, and it's just a tough thing to create.
From one rug pull to the next, PO, Ether, one of the co-founders, is gone. Dude, I mean, like, how many projects? I gotta be honest, a public exit is better than just sort of wondering, like, well, what happened? Like, what went on there? So that is better when they make some, like, it's when your strategy, think about how much work went in to them figuring out how to print more cash on the way out. Spencer, that's like my one issue with this is like all of they did zero innovation during the time, and we're calling it an art collection. But in the midst of all of that, they're like, let's go see if we can go make a couple $1 million real quick by dropping another thing before we announce that we're leaving this whole thing. That's my main, like, the roadmap. There was one, and there was one milestone on it, and it was literally launch something to sell more so we can get the fuck out of here, basically, which is like the most, as far as I'm concerned, like the worst roadmap item you can have. Now, it's better than fade silently into the night. We see a lot of collections doing that, where there's just, you're not hearing from them. It's not clear what's going on. There's no updates coming from them whatsoever. So out of nowhere in the bear market resurfaces the massive DickButt community for them to rally behind this. That's my main issue with it. In this case, in the case of Ether, I think that apparently one of the co-founders is gone. I mean, that's just 50% of the way there. The next guy's like cleaning up the house, you know, like he's like still doing, like, vacuuming a little for the next person that they donate this to the community with, because that's where we're headed. Maybe they roll something out in the process and pull a little bit, find some inspiration from DickButts so they can then go into this thing. That's just the only thing about it that's like, at least Larva Labs did it the exact perfect way possible. They masterfully executed this. No one's saying, they're still at Christie's. They're speaking at those events. They're attending those events.
They deserve to. They deserve to speak at those events.
And CryptoPunks, I think, like, kind of defines all of it, basically. And then some of the generative art that they did as well. But they were able to just, like, there's been nothing since then. And they're just chilling. And basically that's like kind of the best way to handle it, potentially. But in this case, like, I think, you know, some of these other projects make promises and instead rug pull. So it's hard to be a historical rug like that. That's what we're aiming for now. my question is, where does Ether fall on the ranking of historical rugs?
I don't think those three names should even be in the same sentence. Like CryptoPunks,
CryptoPunks.
DickButts, and Ether. Ether, I think, you know, it's a bit of bad luck on their side, but there's also the strategy that they chose to take. They chose to take a very mysterious strategy of deleting tweets and not having a lot of communication that was happening inside the Discord. So if you weren't in a Discord, you could only judge a project on what you saw on Twitter. Then they had obviously the minting problems, and now the co-founder is gone. So there's been just like a continuous lack of communication. And then to say that we're not going to explain what's going on with the co-founder until we're ready, and that type of communication on top of everything else, it just compounds to be like, well, what is going on in this project? And you know, people don't have time to be in every single project to know what is happening with the art and the updates and the roadmap of every single project. So it's so important that projects which are there communicate on Twitter what is going on so that people can easily understand. DickButts, on the other hand, I agree. I have like two ways about it. I'm like, don't really like how this is exiting out. But on the other hand, could this, I don't think it's going to end up being a fine art collectible, but could this go the way of something like Pudgy Penguins, where you had Luca come in and, you know, re-strategize there, or Uniforce, where an entity came in and re-strategizing there. So I think like with DickButts, there are still many different paths that the project can take, and I wouldn't just sort of knock it out the park and say that it's a total rug. I think change of management and change of leadership is going to be important for how successful they are going forward. And then punks are just punks. Like, they shouldn't even be in the same sentence as the other two projects. I think they masterfully, where they were masterfully acquired by Yuga and professionally acquired, even though they also had a period where the founders went very quiet and weren't really communicating what was going on.
And the only comparison I'm making is there's one goal for 99% of people in this space: make as much money as humanly possible and get out with
no obligations at all.
With no obligation, basically, and do that within a 24-month period, 36
as tight
months
as possible, Nick.
As fast as possible. And so that's my main the comparison. Punks as a collectible, you're correct, should not be compared in any way to like CryptoDickButts potentially, or even worse, Ether. Like it's just incomparable. But what I'm simply speaking about is just like the goal. Look at some of the artists in the space, basically. Like, the goal is, how do I make as much money as possible with no obligation whatsoever, and get to just travel the world and call myself an artist, basically, without doing jack shit else for like periods of time. That's the best life ever. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm saying it should be your goal. Like, your goal should be to figure out, how do I do as little work as possible and make insane amounts of money? And so that's what a lot of people in this space have optimized for. Unfortunately, many of them have done it they've stumbled across. Yeah, they've messed up, basically. They've they've tripped over themselves, basically. And so, like, Richard Hex, or whatever his last name is, it's like Richard Hecht, and it's called Hex, but whatever it is. The bottom line is, that guy, you know, he was like, he took the like excessive criminal approach, where he's not even like a mafia person who's like, like, the goal of a mafia person is not to be seen in front of people, but to be fabulously wealthy. Someone like him, he's like on social media.
He's the Dapper Don. He's the Dapper Don.
So he's just being an idiot, like, associated with it. And I think that there's like different categories of people trying to figure out what is the exit path. To be clear, we all have exit paths in mind in one way or another. I just think that a lot of people mess that up. And that's where they didn't start with the end in mind. They didn't figure out what that transition was going to look like. And so now we have a bunch of these projects. I think CryptoPunks, for example, or Larva Labs, they didn't start with the intention of being like, we're going to rug a bunch of people. They gave away the punks for free. They didn't make any money off of the thing, basically.
It's just so different. I mean, it's so early. It's like 2017, 2018. And they're basically like, look at how cool this stuff is that you can do with this Ethereum blockchain. Like, this is pretty cool. It's totally different. It's not even comparable at all. Real quick, we got General Pudge on stage. We had a lot of fun letting somebody on stage yesterday. General Pudgy, excuse me, the Pengu Protector. Is a longtime listener of the show. He's someone that I follow on the show. He's a champion of Pudgy Penguins, which is a collection that a lot of people on this show have exposure to. And obviously, Luca has been on the show multiple times. But General Pudgy, you requested to speak. I confirm that you do not own any CryptoDickButts. Before I let you on stage, what's going on, General Pudgy? How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Pio. Doing good. Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, obviously, I don't think you can compare CryptoPunks to CryptoDickButts, in the same realm at all. But as a non-holder, I think long term, 1D equals 1B. And like I said in the comments, like Andy Warhol peed on metal and sold it for millions of dollars. So I don't think it's out of the crazy realm of possibility for long term one day for CryptoDickButts to be considered in the fine art realm. I mean, if you look at the outlandish like Beeple pieces that sell for millions and shit like that, like I don't think it's that crazy. I think Cryptodes and CryptoDickButts have earned their place in OG pixel art NFTs long term. Now, does that mean price go up? Short term, no. Price probably go down. But I think going like in the long term, like art collectors and NFT collectors will, would want those Cryptodes and the CryptoDickButts in their portfolios. Personally, at least I know I would.
Yeah. So that's a fine thesis to have. You're saying that you think it's going to be fine art, and literally at Christie's or Sotheby's, they're going to bang the gavel and there's going to be a CryptoDickButt on the wall, which I'm not saying is impossible at all. But that people just need to understand that is the bet. The bet is literally that it's like regarded as fine art, like CryptoPunks are, and Fidenzas and, whatever, the Goose, Go ahead.
One of the biggest bulls was Noah, who worked at Christie's. He was a big fan of Dickbutts. I remember I had hosted a dinner and he was at it and he was talking about it. I actually think there is a possibility that exists. I still think though that their approach to leaving feel like it just leaves a little bit of a sour taste that doesn't have. I don't know if that has an impact at all on the overall. Like on the first editions of the Dickbutts. Time will tell. I owned one for a period of time and then realized that it was a short-term pump and sold it. Sergito had successfully called a pump, and I think we made some money while we were at Christie's. We were at Christie's Art Tech Summit.
I bought it on my mobile phone.
That was last year, right?
That was last year. Real quick, the other thing to mention is this stuff just takes a really, really long time, which I'm totally comfortable with, but 99.99% of the NFT space is very uncomfortable with things taking a very, 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 very long time. There you go. So Nifty Nick buying a CryptoDickButt NFT looks like when was this, Clemente? Long time ago, last year.
Bought it for 1.79 ETH, sold it for 3 ETH, made looks like a little
couple
over
$2,000, baby. Yeah.
That's a W. We take those. That's what it's all about.
There used to be so many W's in the bull market NFT space. Very, very interesting to see the current climate compared to then. I've been saying that this is undoubtedly the bottom. I don't know where in the bottom, but it's somewhere in there of the NFT market. If the crypto bottom was the FTX debacle, that's where we're at now. Clemente, you unmuted? What's going on?
Oh, no, nothing. I was just bringing up the Knicks W. Congratulations.
Spencer, any other things you wanted to add?
Sorry, it wasn't a loss, Clemente.
I'm just curious to see this all play out. And, I guess your Ether comparison is interesting, right? Like, I think what I'm looking at is Ether versus Valhalla, right? Where you still have Valhalla. I think of it similar as like an anime project that I have a trouble putting a thesis on, but like has maybe a decent team, like an okay art. And like, they have 9,000 supply, which is like twice what Ether has right now. Or no, actually, because Ether has the Unreal capsules. They have 9,000 supply, but they have 0.31 floor price versus Ether sitting at 0.07. And this is like a big question is like, we've just seen very few NFT anime projects do well, and a lot of them has gone this way. And so the question is like, what makes a project M&A-able, I think, right? Whereas like I'm saying, I think CryptoDickButts is probably a pretty good M&A target. There might be a great custodian that comes after it. I'm not as sure that like if Ether team were to be like, hey, you know what, we lost our main team members, there was a lot of FUD, we don't want to do this anymore, we want to sell the project. Like if that happens, which I don't think is like unreasonable, right? I think this is where we're going to be at for most of the NFT space. Is a lot of these projects are the founders are just going to toss their hands up and say, we don't know what to do. We're not making money off royalties. We don't want to do another mint. And by the way, I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Like I think rather than just doing more and more mints, because you're like, we can't make money off royalties. We don't know how this is going to work. We can't get the floor price to go up, right? Like projects being like, okay, we don't know what we're doing. Let's sell the project. I think we're going to see a lot of that because that's the cleanest exit. The cleanest exit for anyone is if you sell the project, you have an acquirer, the acquirer runs it well, pumps your bags. You look at someone like Cole Therium, right, who founded Pudgy Penguins, where like he had, for someone who probably shouldn't have been running a project, and I think he's admitted that, right? He should not have been running a project. He was like 18, didn't know what he was doing, right? Like he shouldn't have been running a project. He had the cleanest exit of someone who shouldn't have been running a project, right?
Yes.
In that he sold to somebody else, that person's overperforming, his community did fine, right? And he had his exit with his, he made great money. His exit was the sale of the company, right? And so this is where like I just don't know if Ether's been built up enough to sell. Whereas like DickButts has existed for long enough and sustained price for long enough that like it is reasonable for the founder to sell it, right? And I just, this whole M&A thing will be interesting. Now there's a very limited pool of like good buyers, but they exist in the market, right? Like we saw, you know, ex-executives from Binance come and buy OniForce, right? That was like a good buyer of that project. We saw Luca come and buy Pudgies. He was a good buyer of that project. And so, you know, this is where like, what does an anime project have to do, for example, to make itself an acquisition target? I don't know, right? Like that, I don't know that Ether's done it yet. I would say Valhalla would probably be a better acquisition target. Like if you were to step in, there's a short list for me of like, if I were to acquire an anime project, like who would it be? And I'll tell you probably the top of my list is like old rugs, right? Like there's a project called like the Sevens that I think would have been like a good, like that's cool art.
Hard Rug that came out actually before, no, right after OniForce, right after
OniForce, I think, right? Like there
Hard Rug.
The thing about anime that's challenging though is there's just a lot of like anime projects that existed at some point.
Yep.
Right. And so how are you the historic rug? I mean, obviously OniForce was probably the most historic of the anime rugs, right? But
Another
like
Hard Rug, yep.
You know, do you think of like Cryptodes as a historic rug? I don't think that was a rug because there was never a roadmap, right?
That's an art thing.
MFR's a historic rug?
I think, first of all, this makes me very uncomfortable. So the reason why is because on this show, we've identified things that we felt had the potential to not be legitimate business ventures in the NFT space time and time again. And every time we've pointed out that perhaps one of these different entities was not a, really promising business venture, the audiences of said entity get quite furious and write nasty messages, suggest that we're completely wrong. Then 2 to 4 months goes by, and it turns out that we were completely right to different levels of extremity. And by the way, this is not us saying that we're oracles or geniuses. It's more so that 90+% of the ventures in this space have not been, that legitimate. And so I think of one that I'm comfortable naming at this point because I think the broader market has completely accepted that it was a scam, is the Momo Guru collection, which I actually need to give credit to Nick. I was like, well, they have an Emmy award-winning team. Maybe they can do something. And Nick was like, what? Like, this is trash. And like this, that, and the other thing. This thing was hyped up. This thing minted for a high price. It pumped to north of 1 ETH. And now it's at 0.009 ETH. And my assumption is there has been not anything out of the team. I'm sure someone will respond and say the Momo Guru team is quote unquote building. I'm sure I will get that response, but I'm just starting to get very uncomfortable, pointing out entities in the NFT space that are not legitimate business ventures or seem to not be, getting backlash from the audience. Then months go by. It turns out it was a rug pull and no one comes back and says, you know what? You guys were actually right. People still just hate you afterwards. They just hate you anyway.
Well, there's not. So here's what deal is, audience. Next time that I'm talking shit about some NFTs that you want, take a note. Write that down.
Somebody in the comments on YouTube said they're still building.
And when you obviously they just said
No,
that.
he said they made a video game. He's dead serious. They're still building.
Well, there you go. I mean, these things do look like shit in terms of the design, but
anyway, it just makes me very uncomfortable.
I didn't get to finish my statement because I was so rudely interrupted, which is I want an apology from
You're not
people.
gonna get one.
I deserve an apology. So that's what I'm saying. If you see me at an event and like all that I want from you is saying sorry. Okay. Come over, say sorry. You know, I fucked up. I bought something that you faded, Nick. You're right to fade 99% of projects. You were right. So anyways, and speak for yourself, P.O. You may not be an oracle, but your boy,
Nifty Nick
is a failure oracle.
Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, this was our show. Big shout out to Spencer joining the show today. We're trying to figure out, like having a Spencer day, a Kicks day, a Node day, things like this. So we appreciate everyone bearing with us while we iron out these different structures to shows. But it was great having Spencer on. We'll get more mic time from him next time. We're figuring this stuff out. If it's your first time listening, this show happens Monday through Friday, starts at 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's available on Twitter Spaces, Apple and Spotify podcasts, and also YouTube if you actually want to watch the video stream of the show. So make sure you subscribe on all those different platforms. Just do it. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Oh, we got a free NFT. This is the final free NFT in the Long Live Solana series. This is the cover of the series. So put in the code Solana25 at thenifty.com/claim. The code is Solana25, and appreciate everybody listening. Go to thenifty.com and claim that free NFT, and we will